The great crystal hall on Nexus Prime sparkled with lights from 12 different worlds. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in their special chairs, each one built for their different body types. Some had 4 arms, others had scales instead of skin, and a few could only breathe underwater. They had all come here for one reason, to decide what to do about the humans. Ambassador Veltar stood up on his 6 legs. His purple skin turned darker when he was angry, and right now, it was almost black. He pointed one of his 4 arms at the large screen that showed pictures of human colonies spread across the galaxy. "Look at them," Veltar said, his voice making a sound like breaking glass. "In just 50 years, they have built homes on 47 different star systems. They take our trade routes. They copy our technology. They do not ask permission. They just take what they want." The other aliens nodded their heads, or whatever they used for heads. The fish-like hydros made bubbling sounds of agreement. The rock people called granite folk hit their stone hands together. Everyone knew that humans were different from other species in the galaxy. Admiral Jack Morrison sat alone in the human section. He was 60 years old, with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. He had fought in 3 wars and seen more alien worlds than most humans ever would. His blue uniform was clean and pressed, but he felt tired. Very tired. Admiral Morrison called the council leader, a tall being made of living metal. "Do you wish to speak for your species?" Jack stood up slowly. He looked around the hall at all the alien faces staring at him. Some looked afraid. Others looked angry. A few looked sad. None of them looked friendly. "My people came to the stars to learn and grow," Jack said. His voice was steady and calm. "We never wanted to hurt anyone. We just wanted to build new homes and make new friends." Veltar made a sound like laughing, but it was not a happy sound. "Friends? You humans do not make friends. You make copies of yourselves. Every world you touch becomes more human and less alien." "That is not true," Jack replied. "We learn from everyone we meet. We change and adapt." "Yes," said another alien, one that looked like a giant bird. "You adapt too well. You learn too fast. You grow too quickly. Other species take thousands of years to spread to new worlds. You do it in decades." The council leader raised one metal hand for silence. "The decision has been made. Humans will leave all star systems except their home system of Sol. You have 72 standard hours to remove all colonies, all ships, and all people. Any human found outside the Sol system after that time will be destroyed." Jack felt his heart sink. 72 hours to move millions of people? It seemed impossible. But he had been a soldier long enough to know when a fight was lost. "We will comply," he said simply. 3 star systems away, Captain Lisa Hayes was having breakfast with her daughter when the message came through. The communication screen in their small kitchen lit up with the emergency signal that all humans feared. Lisa read the evacuation order twice before she believed it. Her hands shook as she set down her coffee cup. Her daughter Emma, only 8 years old, looked at her with worried eyes. "Mom? What's wrong?" "We have to go home, sweetheart," Lisa said, trying to keep her voice calm. "Back to Earth." Emma's face fell. "But this is our home. All my friends are here." "And what about the school we're building?" Lisa pulled her daughter close. Emma had been born on Kepler 442b. In the research station that 200 families had spent 5 years building. It was the only home the little girl had ever known. "Sometimes we have to leave places we love," Lisa said softly. "But we'll make new friends, and we'll remember the good times we had here." The next 72 hours were the busiest of Lisa's life. Every human in the Kepler system worked without sleeping. They loaded ships with everything they could carry: clothes, food, medicine, and most importantly, All the computers and data files that held their research. Dr. Alan Cooper ran from building to building, making sure nothing important was left behind. He was a thin man with thick glasses, who usually worried about small details. Now he was worrying about huge ones. "The star charts," he said to Lisa as they watched another transport ship lift off. "We have complete maps of this entire region. Trade routes, resource locations, alien military bases. If we lose that information, we lose everything." "We won't lose it," Lisa promised. "Every ship has copies of the database. Even if half our ships are destroyed, the other half will make it home." Alan nodded, but he still looked worried. "The aliens think they're solving a problem by sending us away. They don't understand that they're creating a much bigger one." Lisa looked at him with surprise. Alan was usually a peaceful man who avoided fights. "What do you mean?" "Humans are dangerous when they're desperate," Alan said quietly. "We're even more dangerous when we're prepared. The aliens are giving us time to get ready, and they're making us angry. That's not a smart combination." On the last day, Lisa stood in the empty research station and looked out at the alien landscape her daughter had called home. Rolling purple hills stretched to the horizon under two small suns. It was beautiful, and now they had to leave it forever. Her communicator buzzed. "Captain Hayes, this is Transport 7. We're the last ship. Are you ready?" Lisa took one final look around. "Ready," she said. As Transport 7 left the atmosphere of Kepler 442b. Lisa watched through the window as their home grew smaller and smaller. Other ships from the human colony flew alongside them, all heading toward the same destination, Sol system, where Earth waited for its exiled children. But Lisa was thinking about what Alan had said. The aliens thought they were solving the human problem by forcing them to go home. They thought that keeping humans in one star system would make them less dangerous. Lisa had read history books. She knew what happened when you cornered a dangerous animal. She knew what humans did when they were threatened and had time to prepare. The aliens had made a mistake. A very big mistake. Admiral Morrison's ship was one of the last to cross into Sol system. He stood on the bridge and watched as the invisible line that marked the border passed beneath them. Behind them, 47 star systems that had been human homes were now Forbidden's territory. Ahead of them, Earth grew larger and brighter. "Sir," said his communications officer, a young woman named Kelly Price, "we're receiving messages from Earth. The President wants to meet with all returning commanders immediately." Jack nodded. "Tell her we'll be there." As Earth filled the view screen, Jack thought about the meeting that would happen soon. All the human military leaders, all the scientists, all the politicians would gather together. They would be angry. They would want revenge. But more than that, they would want to make sure this never happened again. The aliens had just taught humanity a very important lesson. In a galaxy full of threats, the only way to be truly safe was to be the strongest. The only way to protect human families was to make sure no alien species could ever again force humans to abandon their homes. Jack Morrison had been a soldier for 40 years. He knew the difference between a retreat and a strategic withdrawal. What the aliens saw as victory was actually just the beginning of their worst nightmare. Humanity was going home. But they would not stay there forever. 5 years had passed since the Great Exile. Earth looked different now. The blue and green planet that had once seemed peaceful was now covered with the lights of massive construction projects. Space elevators reached up to the sky like silver threads. New cities floated in the oceans. The asteroid belt buzzed with mining ships and factories that never stopped working. Dr. Maria Santos floated in the zero gravity of Station Alpha, deep in the asteroid belt. Through her laboratory window, she could see hundreds of human ships moving between the rocky chunks of metal and ice. Each ship was taking materials that would become weapons, armor, or fuel for the human fleet. Maria was 35 years old and had been one of the best scientists on Mars before the exile. Now she led the Applied Physics Division, which meant she was in charge of making human technology better than alien technology. It was a big job, but Maria loved challenges. Doctor called her assistant, a young man named Tim Brooks. The new quantum drive tests are ready. Maria pushed herself away from the window and floated over to the testing area. The quantum drive was humanity's answer to alien faster-than-light travel. But where alien ships followed set paths through space, human ships would be able to jump anywhere they wanted to go. Start the test, Maria said. The small test ship disappeared with a flash of light. 3 seconds later, it appeared again, exactly where they wanted it to be. Maria smiled. The aliens had ships that could travel faster than light, but they could only use certain routes. Human ships would be able to appear anywhere, anytime. Perfect, she said. Now we just need to make them big enough to carry entire fleets. Far below on Earth, President Karen Lewis stood in front of the Global Assembly. The assembly hall was packed with representatives from every nation, every colony ship, and every military unit. They had all come to hear the president's plan for humanity's future. Karen was 52 years old and had been elected president just after the exile. She had promised the human people that they would return to the stars, and she intended to keep that promise. My fellow humans, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. 5 years ago, we were forced to abandon our homes. The aliens thought they were protecting themselves from us. They thought that keeping us in one star system would make us weak. A crowd was silent, waiting for her words. They were wrong. Karen continued. In these 5 years, we have grown stronger than we ever were when we were spread across 47 systems. We have learned to work together. We have learned to share our knowledge. We have learned to focus all of our energy on one goal, making sure that no alien species can ever threaten human families again. The crowd erupted in cheers. Karen waited for them to quiet down before continuing. Today, I am announcing the expansion protocol. This is not just a plan to take back our old colonies. This is a plan to make sure that humanity controls its own destiny among the stars. On the moon, Commander Steve Parker watched the president's speech on a small screen in his office. Steve was in charge of making sure the human military was ready for what was coming. He had been a Marine colonel before the exile, but now he held a new rank in the unified human military. Steve's office was built into the side of a lunar crater, deep enough underground to survive any alien attack. Through his window, he could see the lights of the military training facilities that covered most of the moon's surface. Human soldiers were learning to fight in zero gravity, in different atmospheres, and against alien weapons. Sir, said his aide, Lieutenant Amy Johnson, the new batch of recruits is ready for review. Steve nodded and followed Amy to the training ground. What he saw there made him proud. Young men and women from every nation on Earth were working together as one team. They moved like dancers, each person knowing exactly what the others would do before they did it. These were not the same humans who had been forced to leave their colonies 5 years ago. These soldiers had grown up knowing that aliens were a threat. They had trained their whole lives to fight enemies who were stronger, faster, and had better technology. But they had one advantage that no alien species possessed. They could adapt to anything. How are they doing? Steve asked the training instructor, Sergeant Lisa Murphy. Better than anything we've ever seen, sir, Lisa replied. They learn from every mistake. They work together like they're reading each other's minds. And they never give up, no matter how impossible the situation looks. Steve watched as a team of 12 soldiers faced off against a computer simulation of alien warriors. The aliens in the simulation had energy shields, plasma weapons, and armor that could stop human bullets. But the human soldiers found ways to win anyway. They used teamwork, creativity, and pure stubborn determination. "The aliens are in for a surprise," Steve said quietly. In the Titan Research Complex, Dr. Helen Brooks was working on the most important project in human history. Helen was a small woman with wild hair who usually forgot to eat when she was working on something interesting. Right now, she was working on something that would change everything. "The adaptive shield matrix is ready for testing," she announced to her team. The adaptive shield was Helen's answer to alien weapons. Instead of trying to build armor that could stop every kind of alien attack, she had created shields that could learn and adapt to new threats in real time. When an alien fired a plasma weapon at a human ship, the shield would analyze the attack and instantly create a defense. "Begin the test," Helen said. The testing chamber filled with the light of simulated alien weapons. Plasma bolts, particle beams, and energy disruptors all struck the shield generator. For each attack, the shield created a perfect defense within seconds. "It works," breathed Dr. Kevin Ross, Helen's assistant. "It actually works." Helen smiled. "The aliens have been using the same weapons for thousands of years. They think their technology is perfect because it never changes. But our technology gets better every time they attack us." Meanwhile, on the edge of the Sol system, Captain Dan Miller was leading a secret mission. His ship, the Invisible Hand, was testing new stealth technology. By getting as close as possible to alien patrol ships without being detected, Dan was 38 years old and had been a smuggler before the exile. He knew how to avoid detection and how to gather information without being caught. Now his skills were being used to spy on the aliens who had forced humanity from their homes. "Target acquired," whispered his navigator, Lieutenant Carol White. Zephyrian patrol cruiser, bearing 37 Mark IV. Dan studied the alien ship through his periscope. It was beautiful in a strange way, with purple metal hull and wing-like projections that glowed with internal light. But Dan was not interested in its beauty. He was interested in its weaknesses. "Passive scans only," he ordered. "I want to know everything about that ship. Weapons, shields, crew size, communication frequencies, everything." For 2 hours, the Invisible Hand shadowed the alien patrol ship. Dan's crew recorded every piece of information they could gather. When they were done, they had enough data to plan attacks on similar ships. "The aliens have no idea we're here," said Carol as they prepared to return to base. "Their sensors can't detect our new stealth systems." Dan nodded, but his expression was serious. "That's exactly what we're counting on. When we finally attack, they won't see us coming until it's too late." Back on Earth, in a secure facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, the greatest minds in human history were working together on humanity's future. Scientists who had once competed with each other now shared all their knowledge. Engineers from different countries worked side by side on the same projects. Military leaders planned strategies with input from historians, psychologists, and even artists. Admiral Morrison, older now but still sharp, studied star charts with Dr. Cooper and other experts. They were planning humanity's return to the stars. But this would not be the same kind of expansion that had happened before the exile. "The aliens made a mistake when they gave us 5 years to prepare," Morrison said. "They think like military strategists from their own species. They assume we think the same way. How do we think differently?" asked Dr. Cooper. Morrison smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "They plan for the wars they've fought before. We plan for the wars we've never fought. They use strategies that worked for thousands of years. We create new strategies for every battle. They see war as a series of individual fights. We see it as one big system where everything is connected." "The cascade effect," said Colonel Janet Stone, who had joined the planning session. "We don't just attack their military. We attack their supply lines their communication networks, their ability to coordinate between different species. We make their strengths work against them. Morrison nodded. And we do it all at the same time, across multiple star systems. By the time they understand what we're doing, it will be too late to stop us. The years of preparation were almost over. Human technology had advanced beyond anything the aliens thought possible. Human soldiers were trained and ready. Human ships were being built in secret facilities throughout the Sol system. But most importantly, humanity itself had changed. The exile had burned away the differences that had once divided humans. Rich and poor, different nations, different religions. None of that mattered anymore. What mattered was that they were human, and 10 years had passed since the exile began. Today was the day humanity would return to the stars. Admiral Rick Bell stood on the bridge of the heavy cruiser Defiance, watching as his fleet prepared for the jump to Proxima Centauri. 50 ships hung in space around him, each one packed with human soldiers, weapons, and technology that the aliens had never seen before. Rick was 45 years old and had been chosen to lead Operation Breakout because he understood both strategy and tactics. He had studied every alien battle in recorded history. He knew their strengths and their weaknesses. Most importantly, he knew that this first battle would determine whether humanity had a future among the stars. "All ships report ready, sir," announced his communications officer, Lieutenant Bobby Clark. Bobby was young, only 22, but he had been trained since childhood for this moment. "Signal the fleet," Rick ordered. "Operation Breakout is now active. Jump in 60 seconds." Across the human fleet, crews made final preparations. Captain Janet Stone checked her fighter squadron one last time. Her pilots were nervous but determined. They had trained for this mission their entire adult lives. Dr. Gary Adams monitored the new weapon systems that would give humans an advantage in battle. Colonel Nancy White reviewed the plans for establishing a human colony on Proxima B once the fighting was over. 10 seconds to jump, announced the navigation officer. Rick felt his heart racing. In a few moments, humanity would either begin its return to greatness or face destruction at the hands of alien forces. "Jump," he ordered. Space twisted and folded around the human fleet. For a brief moment, reality seemed to bend in impossible ways. Then the stars changed, and they were in the Proxima Centauri system. The alien garrison at Proxima was not expecting visitors. Commander Velkith of the Zephyrian Empire had been stationed there for 3 years, and nothing interesting had ever happened. His patrol fleet of 12 ships spent their time scanning empty space and sending boring reports back to headquarters. Velkith was reviewing supply requests when his sensor officer made a sound of surprise. "Commander," said the officer, his purple skin turning pale with shock, "I'm detecting multiple ships emerging from quantum space. 50 vessels, unknown configuration." Velkith looked at his display screen. The ships that appeared were unlike anything in his database. They were smaller than most alien warships, but seemed to move faster. Their energy signatures were completely unfamiliar. "Unknown ships. This is Zephyrian Command," Velkith transmitted. "You are in violation of Galactic Council restrictions. Identify yourselves immediately." The response came back in a language that made Velkith's blood run cold. "This is Admiral Rick Bell of the Human Space Fleet. We are here to reclaim our home. You have 30 seconds to surrender or be destroyed." Velkith stared at his communications panel. Humans? But they had been exiled 10 years ago. They were supposed to be contained in their home system. How had they traveled here? How had they built such a large fleet? "Humans are forbidden from leaving Sol system," Velkith transmitted back. "Return immediately or face the consequences." Admiral Bell's response was simple. "We tried following your rules. Now we make our own." The battle began when the human ships opened fire. Velkith had expected human weapons to be primitive compared to Zephyrian technology. He was wrong. The human ships fired weapons that seemed to bend around his energy shields and strike his ships directly. "Impossible," breathed his weapons officer. "Their weapons are adapting to our shields in real time." Velkith watched in horror as one of his ships exploded under human fire. The humans were using some kind of adaptive weapon system that learned how to penetrate alien defenses. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was how they fought. Alien species had developed their military tactics over thousands of years. Each species had a particular style of fighting that their enemies knew and could prepare for. The Zephyrians attacked in formal battle lines, using their superior firepower to overwhelm enemies. The Hydras used swarm tactics with many small ships. The Granite folk preferred to absorb damage while slowly advancing. But the humans fought like no species Velkith had ever encountered. They seemed to change their tactics every few minutes. One moment they attacked in tight formation, like traditional military forces. The next moment they scattered like pirates and struck from unexpected angles. Sometimes they used their larger ships to provide covering fire for smaller vessels. Other times they used their small ships to confuse and distract, while the large ships moved into position for devastating attacks. "They're not following any known tactical doctrine," reported his tactical officer. "Every time we adapt to their strategy, they change to something else." Captain Janet Stone led her fighter squadron in a gravity-assisted attack run that would have been impossible for alien pilots. Human pilots could handle much higher gravitational forces than most alien species, and Janet used this advantage to make her ships do things that alien physics said were impossible. Her wingman, Lieutenant Bobby Clark, followed her lead as they dove toward the Proxima star itself, using its gravity to accelerate their fighters to incredible speeds, before pulling out of the dive and striking the alien ships from below. "Target the communications array," Janet ordered over the radio. "If they can't coordinate, they can't fight effectively." The human fighters struck like hawks diving on prey. Their weapons were smaller than those on the big ships, but they hit with surgical precision. In minutes, they had destroyed the communication systems on half the alien fleet. Without communications, the alien ships began to fight as individuals instead of as a coordinated force. This played directly into human hands. Because humans excelled at individual combat, Commander Tony Davis led the assault on the largest alien ship. His boarding party used new human technology that could cut through alien hull material like it was paper. Once inside, they faced alien warriors who were individually stronger and better armed than humans, but the humans had something the aliens lacked: the ability to work together seamlessly while also thinking independently. Each human soldier knew what his teammates would do without needing to communicate. They moved through the alien ship like water, flowing around obstacles, always finding the weak points in alien defenses. "Alien engineering section secured," Tony reported over his radio. Moving to the bridge. The alien crew fought bravely, but they were not prepared for human tactics. Where aliens followed established combat procedures, humans improvised solutions to problems as they encountered them. When the aliens blocked one corridor, the humans found 3 other ways to reach their objective. When the aliens set up defensive positions, the humans attacked from directions that the aliens had not thought to defend. Within 2 hours, the human boarding parties had captured 3 alien ships and disabled 4 others. The remaining alien vessels were trying to retreat, but human ships were faster and more maneuverable. Admiral Bell watched the battle from his command chair with satisfaction. The new quantum drives were working perfectly. Human ships could appear anywhere in the battle without warning, making it impossible for the aliens to predict where the next attack would come from. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Clark, The alien commander is requesting terms for surrender. Put him through, Bell ordered. Commander Velkith appeared on the main screen. His purple skin was now almost white with fear and exhaustion. Admiral Bell, I surrender my remaining forces. I ask only that you treat my crew with honor, Bell nodded. Your crew will be treated well, Commander. But I want you to deliver a message to your superiors. Tell them that humanity has returned to space. Tell them that we are not the same species they exiled 10 years ago. And tell them that this is only the beginning. The Battle of Proxima ended 4 hours after it began. Of the 12 alien ships that had guarded the system, 8 were captured or destroyed. The remaining 4 were allowed to escape so they could carry news of the human victory back to alien space. Colonel Nancy White's ground forces landed on Proxima b that same day. The planet that had once been home to human colonists would be human again. But this time, the colony would be different. Major Peter King's engineering corps immediately began construction of defensive installations. Every human settlement would be both a civilian community and a military fortress. Humans had learned that peace was only possible when they were strong enough to defend it. Dr. Helen Brooks studied the captured alien technology with excitement. The alien ships used energy systems that humans had never seen before. By combining alien technology with human innovation, she could create weapons and defenses that were better than anything either species had developed alone. The aliens' mistake was thinking that their technology was superior to ours. She explained to her research team. The truth is, our technology is better because it can adapt and improve. Theirs is older and more powerful, but it never changes. We can make it better. As the human fleet took control of the Proxima system, news of the victory spread throughout human space. On Earth, President Lewis addressed the global population with tears in her eyes. My fellow humans, she said, today we have taken the first step on our journey home. Proxima Centauri is once again under human control. But this is not about conquest. This is about ensuring that human families can live as say. The victory at Proxima Centauri was just the beginning. Within 6 months, human fleets were striking at targets throughout the local galactic region. Admiral Kate Wright had developed a new way of fighting that the aliens could not counter. She called it Cascade Warfare. Kate stood in the war room on Luna Base, studying a holographic map of nearby star systems. Red dots showed alien military bases. Blue dots showed human targets. Yellow lines connected systems that supported each other with supplies and reinforcements. The aliens think like we used to think, Kate explained to her staff. They see each star system as separate. They defend each one individually. But we see the whole picture. We see how everything connects. Captain Linda Johnson, Kate's intelligence officer, pointed to a cluster of red dots. The Vega system supplies fuel and ammunition to 12 other alien bases. If we take Vega, all 12 bases become much weaker. Exactly, Kate said. We do not attack their strongest points. We attack the systems that make their strong points possible. When their supply lines break down, their defenses collapse without us having to fight them directly. The assault on Vega began 3 days later. General Chris Martinez led the attack with a combined force of spaceships and ground troops. Chris was a master of combined arms warfare, which meant he knew how to make ships, aircraft, and ground. Soldiers worked together as one powerful weapon. The aliens defending Vega expected a traditional attack. They positioned their ships to defend against enemy fleets approaching from deep space. They built ground defenses to stop enemy armies from landing on their planets. They were ready for the kind of war that alien species had fought for thousands of years. They were not ready for the way humans fought. Chris's fleet did not approach Vega from deep space. Instead, they used quantum jump technology to appear inside the system's asteroid belt. From there, human ships could strike the alien bases while hiding among the space rocks. At the same time, human ground forces did not try to land on the heavily defended planets. Instead, they captured the space stations that processed fuel and manufactured ammunition. Without these facilities, the alien military forces on the planets had supplies for only a few days of fighting. The beauty of cascade warfare, Chris explained to his officers, is that we do not have to defeat the enemy. We just have to make it impossible for them to keep fighting. Within a week, the alien forces at Vega surrendered without a major battle. They still had soldiers and weapons, but they had no fuel for their ships and no ammunition for their guns. The humans offered them safe passage home in exchange for abandoning the system. Dr. Sandra Lee watched the aliens surrender from her intelligence ship in orbit around Vega Prime. Sandra led the code-breaking division that had learned to intercept and understand alien communications. This intelligence advantage was proving to be as valuable as any weapon. Admiral Wright, Sandra reported over secure communication. I'm intercepting enemy transmissions from the Rigel sector. 3 alien fleets are moving to intercept our forces at Wolf 359. They plan to arrive in 48 hours. Excellent, Kate replied. Now we know exactly where they will be and when they will be there. Commander Brown, you know what to do. Commander Joe Brown smiled as he received his orders. Joe led the human rapid response fleet, which specialized in hitting enemy forces when and where they least expected it. His ships were fast, heavily armed, and crewed by pilots who thrived on impossible missions. Joe's fleet jumped to the Wolf 359 system 6 hours before the alien reinforcements were scheduled to arrive. When the alien ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, they found human forces waiting for them in perfect ambush positions. The battle was over in 30 minutes. 2 alien fleets were destroyed, and the third retreated in disorder. But more importantly, the aliens began to realize that humans could predict their movements. This made them afraid to commit large forces to any operation, because they never knew if it was a trap. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was falling apart. The 12 alien species that had once worked together to exile humanity were now blaming each other for the crisis they faced. Ambassador Paul Turner watched the council debates from a hidden observation post. Paul was humanity's new diplomatic representative, but he was not there to negotiate. He was there to gather intelligence and watch humanity's enemies destroy themselves. The Zephyrians demand a unified military response, Paul reported to Earth via encrypted communication. But the Hydros want to negotiate. The Granite folk are threatening to withdraw from the Council entirely. The Velkari are suggesting that they abandon this region of space and retreat to their core territories. President Lewis received Paul's report in her office on Earth. She was older now, but the years of war had made her harder and more determined. How long before their alliance collapses completely? Based on current trends, I estimate 6 months, Paul replied. Maybe less if we increase pressure on their border systems. Do it, Lewis ordered. Every day they spend arguing with each other is another day we can use to grow stronger. The human expansion continued at an accelerating pace. Captain Linda Johnson's reconnaissance ships discovered that alien infrastructure had been built with a critical weakness. It assumed that the aliens would always have technological superiority. Alien defense systems were designed to stop raiders and small attacks. They were not built to withstand sustained conquest by an enemy that learned and adapted. Human engineers, led by Dr. Gary Adams, had developed techniques for turning alien fortifications into human strongholds within days of capture. The aliens built their defenses to last forever, Gary explained to his engineering teams. They used the strongest materials and the most powerful energy sources. But they never planned for someone who would capture their facilities and turn them against them. "How do we do it so quickly?" asked his assistant, Lieutenant Carroll White. "We studied their technology for 10 years while we were in exile," Gary replied. "We know their systems better than they do. When we capture an alien base, we already know exactly how to modify it for human use." The transformation of captured alien facilities became a standard part of human military operations. Within hours of taking control of an alien space station, human engineers would install new communication systems, modify the weapons to use human ammunition, and reconfigure the living areas for human crews. More importantly, they would upgrade the alien technology with human innovations. The result was defensive systems that were stronger than anything either species could build alone. The alien species were learning that fighting humans was unlike fighting any enemy they had faced before. Traditional military thinking said that if you destroyed an enemy's ships and bases, you won the war. But humans turned every defeat into a learning experience and every victory into a stepping stone for the next attack. Colonel Kevin Ross led the assault on the Altair system, which served as a major communication hub for alien forces in the region. Kevin was a specialist in information warfare, which meant he understood that controlling communication was as important as controlling weapons. "We're not just capturing their communication center," Kevin explained to his troops as they prepared for the attack. "We're going to use it to send false orders to their other bases. By the time they realize what happened, we'll have taken 3 more systems without firing a shot." The attack on Altair succeeded beyond Kevin's expectations. Not only did his forces capture the communication hub intact, they also discovered the complete alien military command structure for the entire sector. Within hours, human intelligence officers were sending false retreat orders to alien bases, causing them to abandon their positions voluntarily. Dr. Rachel Lewis, the president's daughter and head of the Galactic Integration Authority, studied reports from the front lines with growing excitement. Rachel was 30 years old and had spent her entire adult life preparing for the day when humanity would need to govern alien populations. "The patterns are becoming clear," Rachel reported to her mother during their weekly meeting. "The alien species are individually powerful, but they cannot work together effectively. Each species has been dominant in their own region for so long that they never learned to coordinate with equals." "What does that mean for our strategy?" President Lewis asked. "It means we can defeat them one at a time," Rachel replied. "The Zephyrians are strong, but they fight alone. The Hydros have advanced technology, but they do not trust the other species. The Granite folk are nearly invincible in defense, but they move too slowly to help their allies. And when we control their territory," Rachel smiled, "when we control their territory, we offer them something they never had under the old Galactic: counsel, efficient administration, fair treatment, and protection from their enemies. Many alien populations will prefer human rule to the chaos of their old system." This prediction proved accurate as human forces advanced deeper into alien space. The civilian populations on captured worlds discovered that life under human administration was often better than what they had experienced before. Humans were efficient administrators who focused on making systems work rather than maintaining old traditions. On the Velkari crystal world of Luminous, the native population had suffered under a corrupt government that taxed them heavily while providing few. 20 years had passed since the exile began. The galaxy was a very different place now. Admiral Susan Taylor stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Indomitable, and watched as the largest fleet in galactic history prepared for the final battle. 5,000 human ships floated in space around Nexus Prime, the former capital of alien civilization. Susan was 55 years old and had earned her rank through 2 decades of constant warfare. She had fought in the liberation of Proximo, the siege of Vega, and the great victory at Wolf 359. Now she commanded humanity's Grand Fleet, which represented more military power than any single species had ever assembled. "Admiral," reported her communications officer, Captain Tim Brooks, "all fleet elements are in position. The alien armada is approaching on schedule." Susan studied the tactical display that showed both fleets converging on Nexus Prime. The alien force was impressive. Over 3,000 ships representing the Azijus. Combined military might of the surviving alien species. It was their last hope to stop human expansion before it became complete galactic dominance. "They're making their final stand," Susan said to her chief of staff, Colonel Janet Stone. Janet had served with Susan for 15 years and understood her commander's thinking better than anyone. "Are you concerned?" Janet asked. Susan shook her head. "They're still thinking like separate species forced to work together. We're thinking like one unified force with a single objective." The outcome was decided before the battle began. Far below on Nexus Prime, General Kevin Ross was coordinating the largest combined military operation in human history. Kevin commanded ground forces, space marines, and support units that would secure the planet once the space battle was won. Kevin stood in the temporary command center that his engineers had built in the crystal caves beneath Nexus Prime's surface. Through the cave opening, he could see the lights of alien and human ships moving across the star-filled sky. "General," reported Major Linda White, his intelligence officer, "the alien ground forces are positioning themselves around the capital city. They have approximately 2 million soldiers from 8 different species. Do they have unified command?" Kevin asked. "No, sir. Each species is following its own battle plan. The Zephyrians want to fight from defensive positions. The Hydros prefer mobile warfare. The Granite folk are setting up heavy artillery positions. They're not coordinating their strategies." Kevin smiled. "Then they've already lost. Patch me through to all unit commanders." Within minutes, Kevin was addressing human military leaders across the planet. His troops were hidden in caves, underground facilities, and camouflaged positions throughout the crystal landscape of Nexus Prime. "Today we end the war that began with our exile," Kevin announced. "The aliens thought they could control us by forcing us to leave our homes. Instead, they taught us that true security comes from strength. Today we establish that strength for all time." The space battle began when the alien fleet opened fire with every weapon they possessed. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and particle cannons lit up space like a deadly fireworks display. For a few moments, it seemed like the alien armada might overwhelm the human fleet through sheer firepower. But Admiral Taylor had learned from 20 years of fighting alien forces. She knew their tactics, their weaknesses, and most importantly, their inability to adapt when their plans went wrong. "Execute Pattern Delta," she ordered. The human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions, making it impossible for the aliens to concentrate their fire. At the same time, human ships began using quantum jump technology to appear behind alien vessels, strike at their weak points, and disappear before the aliens could respond. Captain Bobby Clark led a squadron of human fighters in a gravity-assisted attack run that brought them through the alien formation at impossible speeds. His pilots struck with surgical precision, targeting communication arrays and command centers on the largest alien ships. "The alien fleet is losing coordination," reported the tactical officer on the Indomitable. "They're beginning to fight as individual ships instead of a unified force." This was exactly what Admiral Taylor had planned. Humans excelled at individual combat, while alien species depended on rigid formation fighting. Once the alien formation broke down, human superiority became overwhelming. Commander Joe Brown's Heavy Assault Squadron demonstrated the new human doctrine of adaptive warfare. His ships could switch between different fighting styles within minutes, confusing alien commanders who expected their enemies to follow predictable patterns. "Alien flagship is attempting to retreat," reported Captain Brooks. "Let it go, Admiral," Taylor ordered. "I want the surviving alien leaders to carry news of this battle back to their homeworlds. They need to understand that resistance is futile." The space battle ended after 6 hours. Of the 3,000 alien ships that had attacked Nexus Prime, fewer than 200 survived to retreat. The remainder were either destroyed or captured by human forces. On the planet's surface, the alien ground forces discovered that their numerical advantage meant nothing against human tactics. General Ross's troops used their knowledge of the planet's crystal cave systems to appear anywhere on the battlefield without warning. Major Peter King's engineering corps had spent weeks preparing the battlefield by installing human technology throughout the cave network. When the battle began, human soldiers could move from one end of the continent to the other in minutes, while alien forces were stuck moving slowly across the surface. "The aliens are requesting terms for surrender," reported Major White. "Accept their surrender," General Ross ordered. "But make sure they understand the terms. This is not a temporary ceasefire. This is the end of the war." President Kerrang Lewis, now 72 years old but still sharp, arrived at Nexus Prime 3 days after the battle ended. She had come to accept the formal surrender of the alien governments and to establish the new order that would govern. The Galaxy Dot, the surrender ceremony took place in the Great Crystal Hall, where humanity had once been exiled. The surviving alien leaders sat in the same chairs their predecessors had used 20 years earlier to pronounce humanity's banishment. The symbolism was not lost on anyone present. 20 years ago, you forced us to leave our homes because you feared what we might become, President Lewis said as she addressed the assembled alien representatives. Today, your fears have been proven correct. We have become exactly what you were afraid of, the dominant power in this galaxy. The alien leaders sat in silence. Some looked angry, others looked defeated, and a few looked relieved that the long war was finally over. But we are not the monsters you expected, President Lewis continued. We do not seek to destroy your species or eliminate your cultures. We seek to establish an order that protects all sentient beings from the kind of threats that once forced us into exile. Dr. Rachel Lewis, now 40 years old and head of the Galactic Integration Authority, stood up to explain the terms of the new galactic government. Rachel had spent 2 decades preparing for this moment, studying alien cultures and developing policies that would allow different species to coexist under human leadership. Each species will maintain control of their homeworld and core territories, Rachel announced. You will govern your own people according to your own traditions. But galactic trade, communication, and military affairs will be administered by human authorities. What if we refuse? Asked the Zephyrian representative, his purple skin dark with anger. Then you will discover why resistance is not a practical option, President Lewis replied calmly. We are offering you the chance to prosper under a system that protects your rights and promotes your welfare. The alternative is continued war against an enemy that has never lost a battle. The alien leaders had no choice but to accept. Over the following months, human administrators began establishing the new galactic government. The process was surprisingly smooth, because most alien populations discovered that life under human rule was more prosperous and secure than what they had experienced before. Mayor Bill Cooper, now promoted to regional administrator, oversaw the integration of 50 alien worlds into the human governmental system. His success on Luminous had made him the model for human administrators throughout the galaxy. The key is to respect their cultures while improving their lives, Bill explained to new human administrators. We're not trying to make them human. We're trying to make their societies work better. This approach proved remarkably successful. Alien worlds under human administration experienced rapid improvements in communication, transportation, education, and economic opportunity. Many alien populations began to see human rule not as conquest, but as liberation from the inefficient and corrupt governments they had endured for centuries. Admiral Susan Taylor was appointed as the first Secretary of Galactic Defense, responsible for maintaining the military forces that would keep peace throughout human space. Her headquarters on Luna coordinated the activities of human fleets throughout the galaxy. "We learned an important lesson from our exile," Susan explained to her staff officers. "Peace is only possible when you have the strength to enforce it. The aliens threatened us because they thought we were weak. Now that they know we are strong, they have chosen cooperation over conflict. The transformation of galactic civilization accelerated over the following: